Okay, I'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the roll call.
Senator Driscoll.
Here.
Senator Garou.
Here.
Senator Larson.
Here.
Senator Smith.
Here.
Chairman Salzar.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So the first item before us is House Bill 199. Representative, good to have you here. Can you take us through your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 199 is an amendment to our existing ESA program. It changes a few things, some of which have been contemplated by the previous committee, but essentially we change the funding source so that you get a continuous flow of money from federal mineral royalties. It takes about 50% of those royalties that were going into the school foundation program, diverts them to this account, and then if we have more money than we're using, that's defined as 150% of next year's demand. Then it flows back to the school foundation program, and then the idea was that would, in the long run, stabilize the school foundation program because of the extreme difference in cost of a student being in that program versus here. It also deleted an appropriation for $20 million from the original program, which has not gone into effect yet, and added a $30 million appropriation so that we can handle the changes in eligibility in this bill, which take the scholarship from $6,000 to $7,000, and create universal eligibility so that students and parents are no longer restricted by their income. That's what this bill does. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions? Any questions? Senator Smith.
I have a question for the sponsor. Does this bill address whether or not a child, let's say they're getting homeschooled and their parents buy into this program, if they want to play sports, can they, or are they completely cut out of the system if they enter this program? Because that's a concern for a lot of people, that they don't want their kids to be deprived of other activities. And so I was wondering if this bill addressed that.
Representative Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill does not specifically address that, no, because everything that would have to deal with that is in law right now. And how that works is that schools can create their own fee structure to actually charge for these things, and you can use the money from your scholarship to pay for those things, with the exception of high school sports in grades 9 through 12. Those are done through a specific association that I can't remember the name of right now, but there's another statute that would actually still allow them to play in those high school sports without them being charged.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, Representative Andrew, thank you so much. We'll take testimony on this bill. Any agency folks here? No? Okay, general public discussion. Yes, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Leslie Heiner. I am Vice President of Legal Policy at EdChoice. We are the organization that has been educating people about school choice since 1996. We do a great deal of research, and our mission is simply to share what we know, to answer any kind of questions that you may have about school choice, how it works, why it works, any of that, and to also share our experiences that might be useful to you. Then we do that state to state, and then the states decide what they want to do with it. But we're here to provide the information for you. I have been advocating myself for school choice for 39 years, which means before there was a national movement. So I have a lot of experience that I can share, and I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you have. The bill that you have in front of you, I am quite familiar with this, going back to the first version of this bill when Representative Andrew first put it forward. And I can tell you that I found it to be a delightful bill. It was perfectly put together by the representative. And our bottom line is this something that will work? Is it legally defensible? And will the children of this state benefit from this? And the answer to all three questions are a resounding yes. So I urge your support of this legislation.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions? Thank you so much for testifying. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any other folks who'd like to come forward and address me on this bill? One last shot. There's no one online? Okay, then I will close the public testimony and bring it to the committee. Anyone want to move the bill?
I'll move the bill.
Okay, for a second? Second. Discussions, amendments? Any amendments?
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
have an amendment
Senator Driscoll.
that we're just passing out. You're telling you, looking at what it really does, folks, is this amendment will move, create delete a section and create a new section to move it from the FMRs to general fund for the funding source of it. That's really all this amendment does.
Okay. Is there any? Second for discussion. Second for discussion. Senator Guru?
Yeah, I appreciate the motion, but as I look at the engrossed copy of the bill that I'm looking at, I'm on page 17, section 5. That'd be line 4. It says they're appropriated $30 million from the general fund. And I did not see anywhere else, because I too saw the original bill and saw that FMR, so I'm just trying to, is this motion necessary? Is this what we're working off of, is the engrossed version? Where it just says general fund, so maybe we could bring her
Yeah, I
back,
think,
just to explain.
Yeah, we better bring him back.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
Representative Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The FMR language is on page 3, starting with lines 1.
Okay.
You can see where we make that adjustment.
Okay,
Okay,
so it makes sense.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Okay, any other discussion about
Mr. Chairman.
this amendment? Representative, Senator Guru.
Then on and for the amendment,
Okay.
that I think this is a prudent thing to do if we're gonna move forward with this.
Okay, Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, so I guess I got a question. What you deleted probably is taking out the future funds?
You have to look at it. It actually was brought to me, I'm going to be honest with you. Senator Olson's who graphed this.
Representative Andrew.
There we go.
Can you please repeat the question? I was having a side conversation,
Yes.
sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering, deleting what we have, that is kind of the future funds? And so we'd have to find ways to fund this in the future.
That's coming.
Mr.
That'll be coming next amendment.
Yep, okay, good. You got that straight?
I guess so.
Okay, good. Other discussion on the amendment? Senator Smith.
Mr. Chair, just a question for the bringer of the amendment. What is the reasoning? What's your logic in this?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Smith, what this really does, it just truly, like I said, it moves the funding source from FMRs, federal mineral royalties, what you explained to us, to general fund. And that came at the bequest of a guy that lives on this level and legal counsel. So that's kind of where it came from.
Okay, any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the Driscoll amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Any other amendments?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Yes.
I would like to have this added to the standard budget, and I don't have language, but it should be fairly easy
Yeah.
for staff to do it.
Is there a second for that? There's a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to explain. I brought these in two separate
Yes.
intentionally, so if we get to the floor, we can actually do or undo what, as we need to. Explanation to Representative Andrews, just so everyone understands. The
Yeah.
reason we didn't link them was I didn't want to have to take them apart on the
Good
floor.
idea. Yes, that's a good idea. Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carry. Pardon? Was there a no? Okay, one no.
How
Okay.
dare you?
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote on House Bill 0199 as amended. Senator Driscoll? Senator Garou?
No.
Senator Larson? Senator Smith? And Chairman Salzar? Mr. Chairman, 4 ayes, 1 no, do pass amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So you, those of you that have spent a little time on appropriations recognize the bill that is in front of you, which was last year's House Bill 75, where we required had some penalties in there if you didn't do routine maintenance. And on major maintenance, you may recall, we come back this year and worked with the university and the colleges and took that component out, and then we worked this over the interim this year, over maybe 3 meetings, I believe, for those of you that participated in that. Mr. Chairman, I think, let me just share with you what the bill affects. It impacts capital construction and major maintenance, routine maintenance, and strategic planning. And what we've been trying to do, members of the committee, is we have definitions for major maintenance that set in the colleges. That was different than the major maintenance definition in the university, that was different than the definition in public. We had routine maintenance, and so we've been working to try and conform all of that and then move forward with the intent that when we look at major maintenance and routine maintenance, now with all the money that we put into our public buildings and schools, that we are doing the maintenance to the level that we are getting the complete life out of those buildings, and not, so but we're doing routine maintenance and we're doing major maintenance before we replace a school or we replace a building. And so this legislation is really trying to move us in this direction. Who the bill affects is the state agencies, state-owned buildings under the authority of the state. So that would be all of your corrections facilities, state hospital, Department of Health facilities, this building, the buildings that you can see out here, as well as K-12, and community college and the university. And there's one section in here that just applies to all public entities. There's 4 major concepts in here. You will recall, Mr. Chairman, that each year in the Section 300s, we ensure that major maintenance funds don't automatically revert at the end of the year. That should be codified. We do that in this bill. And then we had another Section 300 in there that mandates the SBC use major maintenance formula that we use in school for all of the other public entities. We put that in instead of having it being in the budget bill. And then it requires comprehensive reporting and expenditures on page 14 to be reported to the SBC. That should not be in the budget bill. Then we come back and if you look on pages 5 through 10, we really uniform the definition and consolidate and standardize those definitions under the Department of Construction. And then you go through the back half of the bill and you see where we make that reference in the community college section, in the University of Wyoming section, and in those others that you'll be familiar with. The third thing that we do in this bill is we require all of these entities to develop and implement a proactive routine maintenance schedule, which includes planning and detailed record keeping. That's found on page 14. It requires focus on preventing maintenance backlogs and ensuring the properties and their components reach their full life expectancy. This is found in each section, and you can really see a good example of that on page 29, line 5 for the K-12 model. So we would have similar for the university and for the others. The fourth thing we do in this bill is there's some policy changes. We had, for the community college at some time several decades ago, we had, if you was a community college and you got a new building, it would phase into receiving major maintenance dollars over 7 years. That doesn't make sense. You should start getting your major maintenance dollars the first year so that you can be ready to address those major maintenance projects. And so that's repealed. And then there's a section in there that on page 18 that deals with non-resident contractors on public works. Right. What we're trying to do there is if you were a city, a municipal airport, and you needed to have some component that's unique to the airport performed, and there wasn't a contractor or a provider of that service in the state, that you wouldn't have to use an in-state contractor to do that. The problem we're trying to fix, we are passionate about residency and to make sure that our resident contractors have the ability to do this. But this is for those projects that are under the $50,000 mark. And what sometimes happens is if you couldn't find, if you were in Rock Springs, for example, and that component was available or that service was available in Utah, you would have to go to your local in-state contractor, who would then go to the guy in Utah to come and do the work and drive the price up. And so this is, if you say, well, what about when we're bidding? This isn't in the bidding section. If it goes out to bid, there's still the resident requirements, the preference requirements of the 5%. This is in that section that we have in statute that's below the requirement to bid. Then one of the last things we do there is, particularly in our K-12 model, where sometimes there's a major maintenance issue that comes up, and the funding model doesn't provide, with your square footage, doesn't provide enough major maintenance dollars to get the project done. This allows you to come back before the State Building Commission and request, so that we're not postponing those major maintenance projects to where they turn into a capital construction project. And then the last thing we do, and this is really kind of the heart of why this bill is here, is we're going to we want to establish a statewide strategic planning system that the Department of Construction oversees, to where that we're staying on top of the routine maintenance, the major maintenance. And Mr. Chairman, it's with that, ending with that point, that I need to acknowledge a Larson mistake on the House side. When we heard this bill on the House, there is a fiscal note from the Department of Construction that says to implement, and we worked with the Department of Construction. We knew that this strategic planning component was in the bill. We asked how much it was going to cost. They come back and says it'll be $750,000. That's the fiscal impact to this to this bill, and we didn't re-refer it on the House side to the House Appropriations Committee. I caught that mistake and went before the, went to the chairman of appropriations on the House side. I went to the chairman of appropriation. So I went to the chairman of the appropriation on the House side, and we were doing the budget, and he says, well, why don't we try to put that in on a third reading amendment? That's what I provided here for you today. You'll see that on your sheet, your summary sheet in the budget on the unrelated items. There was an amendment, third reading amendment, Larson Bear amendment for $750,000. That was to fund this strategic plan. Now, whether that is the best place to have that, or if this committee wanted to consider here on the floor, putting that into the bill as is something that would be up for you guys to decide. I'm just, Mr. Chairman, my intent here was to just help to inform you of the mistake, and then a couple of options for you to correct that if you so chose. So with that, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I'm
so-
happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Members of the committee, it's my preference with regard to this amendment that it come from the floor of the Senate rather than tuck it in here. So that's my preference. Senator Guru.
Mr. Chairman, I guess well, first let me say this to the good bringer. Thank you for bringing this back. And I know we're going to maybe hear a little bit from the agencies, but I appreciate you bringing this back and sticking with this. I know it was kind of got left on the cutting room floor last year as it happens, but I do appreciate it. And so maybe what we'll do is, I don't know if anybody else wants to testify on this, and maybe we'll talk about this amendment. So thanks.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Senator Larson. Appreciate that. Other testimony on this bill? Who else? Yes, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dale McComey, Director for the State Construction Department, and I appreciate the bringer of the bill's efforts over last year and this year. There was a lot of collaboration with all of the agencies, the community colleges, the State Construction Department. I think this bill does an awful lot to, as was mentioned, to get the same verbiage. You know, part of my house deals with the CM side, the construction management side. So they're working with UW, with the community colleges, with the state buildings. We have these differences in terminologies. That kind of affected even some of the bidding. The contractors and folks are really wondering, well, what's this term, what's that term, and how this all works. So this really goes a long ways to try and clarify all of that. I think the routine maintenance portion of this is something that in the past has been somewhat missing. And so I think it really strengthens that portion of it. If you don't do your proper routine maintenance, it adds your cost to your major maintenance. And if you don't have the funding for that, then we're into the reconstruction, the capital construction, and I think that ties it all together. The strategic plan was something that I asked the Joint Appropriations Committee for an interim study on. We did an awful lot. Testified is Representative Larson said, I think 3 different times to Joint Appropriations Committee. And I think it really, this 20-year plan really ties all of this together. It ties it together for the long term. I think it's something that is needed from just my years of testifying before the legislature, not just in my current role, but even as transportation, where you have a long-term plan that we can help the policymakers understand what's coming down the pike. We'll be asking agencies to let us know what's the status of their building, status of building requests, not next year or 2 years or 5 years, but We can look 20 years into the future with the new systems that we're using for building assessments, gives us a 20-year look. And this ties all of that together. So I think trying to bring forth, what's a consistent funding level? For the members that weren't part of joint appropriations this summer, one of the things that I thought was important that we get into the seesaw bust boom cycles. We create our own inflations, we lose our labor force. Hopefully we can create some kind of a consistent funding stream based on this 20-year strategic plan that would then allow industry, our consultants, to build their houses here in Wyoming. And so things aren't being outsourced from outside of Wyoming. And we actually have a component, we're working with industry, and we've had discussions with community colleges and the schools on their CTE programs, because the trades are one of the big things that we're lacking in this industry. So how can we work with trades, with industry now if we can build a more succinct, flat funding source that they can build their workforce, and how does that transfer up through our K-12 system and our community college for the trades? So it encompasses, I think, an awful lot of different things. It's going to be a hoist to do this. My research and my understanding is nobody in the United States has done this at the state level. When I was working as a consultant, I did some of these strategic plan reviews at more of a government level for an agency such as transportation or things like that, but not at bringing this holistically together. But I think it is, again, from doing this since 2015, I think it's something that would be a great benefit to the department and to the state for the understanding of the SBC. It aligns with their policy of a 25-year maintenance review of buildings. So again, just a great bill, I think, overall. A couple of years of work to get done. Actually, I think before that, we started talking about it when we revised all the bidding requirements and stuff. So I think it's prime time to see this move forward.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other testimony?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Kelly Little, and I represent the Associated General Contractors of Wyoming.
And good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Jessie Defoe with the Wyoming Construction Coalition.
We are here today together to represent Wyoming's construction industry. We support this bill, and we ask for you all to support it as well. We appreciate these efforts to streamline statute and processes, having the language clear, concise, and consistent throughout all areas of capital construction, major maintenance, and routine maintenance statutes for all state-owned buildings can only be helpful for agencies, contractors, and other stakeholders. We also support adding the exception language to the resident contractor requirements for projects that aren't required to be bid out. However, we ask those exceptions not to be expanded further. We feel these changes are fair and logical, and they do so without eroding the benefit to resident contractors. And Mr. Chairman, with your blessing, I'll pass it over to Ms. Defoe.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And we agree with those comments, and we appreciate to be here on behalf of industry today and to just speak briefly to the strategic plan. We think that that's vital as we look at the workforce, and as it was mentioned, being able to provide that consistent workforce, to know how long to keep people on, to be ready for those and anticipating them. We will see those inflation costs hopefully not rise like we have seen in the past, and also to prepare our future workforce for those opportunities as well. And so to plan that out on the industry side for our youth and to keep them here in Wyoming, we think that that's critical. Industry's been involved in this. We appreciate not only the bringer of the bill, but also the department and involving us in this, and we'd love to continue the conversation. So thank you for having us today.
Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, and Mr. Chairman, if we might too, we would also just really appreciate the consideration of the amendment to fund the strategic plan, whether it be here at the committee or on the floor, whatever the pleasure of that is, but to ensure that that plan happens, whatever way we can help support that, we'd like to do so.
Okay, any other questions? Senator Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Little, Ms. Defoe, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming to testify. I just want to make sure that, so it's the position of the contractors that this bill, and as the bringer of the bill, and then Mr. McComey talked about, and that you all are in agreement, then this is it's hard sometimes to say a 43-page bill is actually helping regulation and helping achieve a certain goal, because it's just a lot of verbiage. But the bottom line is, this is a good bill for jobs for Wyoming. It's a good bill for budgets for us, and good for the buildings in the state of Wyoming as far as keeping them up and keeping them moving forward. Would be a fair characterization?
Mr. Chairman. Senator Guru, I would agree with that. I think that I look at this as a continuation of the review, the fine tooth comb over of the statutes that was taken under in 2019. There was a lot of good work that was done then, and Representative Larson has, he's been very instrumental in just continuing to review these statutes and getting them consistent and clear and concise. So yes, we would agree with that.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Yes, Senator Brewer. Testimony. Any other testimony? I'll close public testimony. Any motions?
Move the bill.
Move the bill. Second. Discussion. Let me say I support this bill. This is, and Representative Larson, thank you for the work that you've done on it. With regard to the amendment, it's my preference that this amendment come from the floor. Other discussion. Senator Guru.
Mr. Chairman, I understand your desire and will be happy, and I know there are hopefully others on this committee that will sign on to this amendment to make sure that we get it heard on the floor in a positive way and do so with dispatch.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Roll call vote on House Bill 86, engulfed. Do pass. Senator Driscoll. Aye. Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Larson. Aye. Senator Smith. And Chairman Salzar. Aye. Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes, do pass.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Representative Larson. That's,
Mr. Chairman, I've got some, I don't know who may be presenting this on the floor, but whomever, if they'd like to get with me, I've got some notes and stuff to go with.
Thank you, Representative Larson.
probably
Appreciate
Greer or
that.
Driscoll. I'm happy to do it, Representative Larson.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next bill is House Bill 97. Do we have anyone here to discuss House Bill 97?
Yeah.
Please come forward.
The director?
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lynn Budd, I'm the Director of the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security, and I have my colleague here.
And I am Todd Colvin. I'm a special agent with the Wyoming Division of Criminal Investigation and the Director of the State Fusion Center. It's my office, along with Office of Homeland Security, that will be responsible for investigating the information that's outlined here in HB 97.
Great, good to have you. Director, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, to give you some background, and I believe we had this conversation a little bit at the last time I was here before you, but I will refresh memories. You all have been through a lot since then. So as we began to work through the statutes that were implemented last year, addressing asking our agency to develop critical infrastructure zones around critical infrastructure, identify that and develop those zones. The current legislation, the current statute as it reads, has us communicating the zones to the county clerks, and they are to look at their conveyances and evaluate those for sales or conveyances that happen within those critical infrastructure zones. In conversations with the County Clerks Association, we all agreed that it would work much better if we essentially reversed the flow of the data in that situation. We would like to keep the sensitive information with regard to identification of critical infrastructure sites protected within our office rather than communicating that to the county clerks. They would like to not have to go through the process of evaluating those conveyances, but just basically complete a download at a periodic time to our office of those conveyances, and we make the comparison between those critical infrastructure zones and the current conveyances that they have, if that makes sense.
It does.
So that's what the majority of the adjustments to the statute are, and then I will let Mr. Colvin explain the other adjustments.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. What I'm here to talk about is the language in the bill that talks about within 5 miles of critical infrastructure zones. As I interpret that language right now, the impact to us would be that we have the potential to investigate property conveyance within that 5-mile zone when we feel there may not be a need to investigate that particular piece of property for whatever reason, through an assessment that we don't feel ownership of that particular parcel of land would present a threat to Wyoming's interests or national interests. And a change in the language saying up to instead of being all-inclusive, we feel the impact would allow us to be a little bit more focused on the properties that we do think may present a threat if they were owned by a foreign adversary.
Great. Any questions? Any questions? Yes, Director.
Yeah, I wanted to just go a little bit further. And part of the reason why this is probably, well, it was the interim work with the Joint Appropriations Committee is the reason why you're hearing this. However, there will be likely a request for funding to development of a software system to do that comparison between the critical infrastructure zones and the conveyances. I have no idea what that will be at this point in time because the price tag or the investigation of that software will depend on which direction the information is flowing. So we have been talking with several software vendors just to get an idea of their capabilities, but we have not issued an RFI or an RFP to this point due to the fact that we need the data to go the other way.
So that request will come in '26?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we have no idea what that's going to look like. Okay. Questions? Senator Smith?
Mr. Chair, Director Budd, I was just kind of curious. I was going to ask you how you were going to do that, how you were going to, with it up to or within 5 miles, how your department was going to vet that, who owned what and how. Because right now it's up to the clerks to do that and then get back to you, correct? And I just was curious if you had the personnel for it, if you're going to need personnel, if you're going to need software. It sounds like you definitely need software. What about personnel? Do you have a idea on that?
Director Budd.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Smith, I think at this point, for this particular activity, I think staffing is appropriate as long as we have a software program that is going to be able to make that comparison for us. And I believe that there is software out there that can either do that right now or may be able to, have some adjustments to work for us. We are in the process of identifying all of the critical infrastructure zones now, which is due. Right now, it says due to the clerks by July 1 of '25. We've not, and there may need to be a change there, but we're prepared to have the majority of the basic lifeline critical infrastructure points identified in those zones established by that period of time, and so we're working hard to get that done.
Thank you. Just real quick. Thanks for being here. I just want to make sure. So on page 3, lines 9 and 10, that located up to and the striking of the within were where you want to be as far as how that language reads right now.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Senator Aguero, yes, that is correct. That change would make that modification.
Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote on House Bill 97, do pass. Senator Driscoll? Senator Guru?
Aye.
Senator Larson?
Aye.
Senator Smith? And Chairman Salzar? Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes, do pass.
So, why don't we do that next?
Yes, I'm ready. She'll be here in a second. She's watching online. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Laurie Bratton, and I represent House District 51 in Sheridan County. I'm here to introduce House Bill 166, State Auditor Payment Transparency, and I will do that with the auditor. We've been working together on this bill. The purpose of this bill is to codify the terrific work that our state auditor is already doing today to provide transparency to the people of Wyoming through the website wyopen.gov. Our state auditor has put into place an amazing public service for the people of Wyoming. Wyopen is Wyoming's online checkbook. It gives the public easy access to the state of Wyoming expenditures so people can see how the state spends our money. Currently, the site includes data for expenditures made by the state of Wyoming, starting from January 30th, 2020, up until just a few days ago. Through this work of, although this work of transparency is in place today, it is not required by state statute. This is a project that the office has put together on its own accord, but a future state auditor could decide to not continue providing this service. House Bill 166 would simply codify the work that the office has already been doing so that the people of Wyoming won't lose this valuable resource in the future. So what data is currently included or excluded on the website? The Wyopen website includes payments made by the state of Wyoming through the Wyoming Online Financial System, or WOLFS, to vendors for the purpose of goods and services. But while the data is very comprehensive, it doesn't include all of the state of Wyoming expenditures. That's because confidential or sensitive information, which is protected by state or federal law, has been excluded. Information, just some ideas of what type of information is excluded would be, but not limited to, transactions that qualify to aid for individuals such as Medicaid, Medicare, and other direct assistance payments, refunds associated with assistance programs, expenses related to confidential law enforcement activities, subsidized adoptions and/or foster care payments, child support recoveries, collections, distributions, victim compensation claims, and personnel and disability payment claims. As you would expect, the expenditure data is classified by types within the WOLF system, and that data can be searched online and downloaded into a spreadsheet. That includes date of payment, state agency making the payment, vendor the payment was sent to, a description, the amount of the payment, as well as some other data entry codes such as invoice numbers and things like that. I've taken advantage of it many times over the past few years. I went online and I downloaded all the available data for the month of January, and it included 89,358 transactions, ranging in size from 1 penny to tens of millions of dollars. People can search through this data online, or they can download the data into a spreadsheet. So I'll walk you through the bill. On page 1, line 9, it creates a new paragraph, Romanet 9, that actually starts on page 2, line 2. And the first several words on line 2 are very important because that's subject to state and federal law. And this is what ensures that that sensitive or confidential information would be protected under the existing legal framework. It goes on to say that the office shall make all payments made by the office available for public inspection and download. And then it says the minimum amount of information to be posted in an allowable lag time of 30 days from the transaction to the publishing date. But actually, sometimes, it may run 3 days behind, sometimes it's actually within a day. So the data shall be maintained on the website for at least 5 years. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Senator Rue and then Senator Smith.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. First, Representative Bratton, thank you, and thank you for walking us through that. I really appreciate it. I think that I think this came before us because we were involved with the study this summer about IBARs and all that, and I think this is why the president sent this our way, because Appropriations has been working on this. We do appreciate it, and nice job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, first I want to comment, I want to commend the auditor. I know that Foster Freeze that was his issue when he ran for governor, and you opened the books, and we all appreciate it. And Representative Bratton, I had a quick question for you. You said there were 800,000 expenditures that you can, what, would you give us that number again?
89,000.
89?
Oh,
And I want to know
Chairman.
what the time frame was on that. Is
Senator,
that since it opened, or is that a year?
1 month.
One what?
1 month.
1 month, and what was the number that you said again? Because
Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me pull that back up. It was for the month of January. This is actually a little bit shy, but it was 89,358 transactions.
Thank you.
Senator, any other questions? Anyone else want to testify? No? Anyone? Okay, I'll close public testimony. Committee, what's your move call?
Second.
Second, any discussion?
Third.
Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote on House Bill 166. Senator Driscoll.
Aye.
Senator Garou.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
Senator Smith.
Aye.
And Chairman Salzar. Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes do pass.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy. Next bill will be House Joint Resolution 1. This is a cap fin. Mr. Treasurer, would you like to walk us through this one?
Thank you, committee. I'm Treasurer Kurt Meyer. I'm going to talk a little bit about HJ 1. This was brought by the Select Committee on Capital Financing. It's an issue that we've been running around in the office for a couple, 3 years. I think a couple of you guys been on Select Committee on Capital Financing Investments, probably know something about it. Essentially, it goes into the act of admission. It asks the Congress to make an amendment in the act of admission. Essentially, back in 1881, everything as far as income was just referred to interest in income. And what we're going to do is just basically change interest to earnings in these areas, because in 1881, we didn't, the state couldn't invest in stocks, didn't have a lot of the things that we do now. So earnings is a more inclusive and more descriptive, definition of what should be in the act of admission. And then we'll go ahead and carry that forward into the PMTF and the other permanent land funds. So that's that in a nutshell. We can go through it line by line, but essentially that's what it is, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Any questions for the Treasurer? Any questions?
Move the bill.
Seeing none, any other public testimony? Any other public testimony? Okay.
Patrick's leaving this on, and I'm going to pull it into the call.
Welcome, Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, Patrick Fleming, CIO from the Treasurer's Office. Just a couple other points that I just want to highlight and add to the Treasurer's comments is that, as the Treasurer mentioned, historical interest income from bonds was great, but now our portfolio is loaded with alternative investments and other things that are not necessarily either interest or income in the definition. And so that's why they amended it. They're looking to amend it. This is not, we're not the first to do this. Other states, Idaho, New Mexico, Utah, I know is in the process. Either was done last year in the process of doing it. Other states are trying to do the same thing that we are looking to do this. So why? Why are we trying to do this? Well, the big thing is because of our spending policies, we need to come up with interest income dividends and realized gains to pay for that 5%. And so what other institutions like endowments, and this is kind of called the endowment model, they just look at your total earnings, everything that you're earning, to look at the spend. And it allows them greater flexibility and it would allow us then to do the same thing. And so what does that actually mean in dollars? Well, if you look at the last 10-year average return by U.S. endowments, they averaged 9.1% by enabling them to do this. Our long-term average over the last 10 years was 6% because we're beholden with some of these interest income and other restrictions that we have. So as the Treasurer mentioned, this has been a long-term process, as you well know, Mr. Chair, and we just hope that we'd be able to pass this to move forward with this very important process. Thank you.
Perfect. Any questions for Mr. Fleming? Thank you very much, Mr. Fleming. Any other testimony? Seeing none, public testimony is closed. Committee, what's your pleasure? Second. Bill's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question called, roll call.
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote on Joint Resolution 001. Senator Driscoll?
Aye.
Senator Garou?
Aye.
Senator Larson?
Aye.
Senator Smith?
Aye.
And Chairman Salazar registered an aye vote. 5 ayes do pass.
House Joint Resolution 1 has passed the Senate. Would you like to carry that, Senator Smith? It's about up your alley, I think. Okay, that'll be you. Any further?
No.
We are